The Oval Office in February 2025 wasn't just a room. It was a crucible, steeped in the ghosts of deals past, where the air thrummed with something raw and electric. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky sat across from U.S. President Donald Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance, a trio locked in what was billed as a lifeline for a war-torn nation. But what unfolded wasn't diplomacy in the noble sense. Picture instead a corporate raid draped in the rhetoric of peace, a moment where America's old skin as Cold War protector slipped away, revealing a postmodern colonial hunger. At its heart, not Ukraine's survival but lithium. Beneath the scarred fields of Ukraine lie veins of a metal that's become the world's new oil. A leaked Pentagon memo from 2024, unearthed by sharp-eyed reporters, hinted at the stakes. These reserves could loosen China's grip on the electric vehicle battery game, where it holds sway over nearly 4/5 of the supply chain. The clock's ticking, secure them soon, or watch technological dominance slip east. Then there's the so-called Ukraine Reconstruction Fund, its draft clauses whispered about in financial circles, echoing the predatory deals of a century ago. Think banana republics, where repayment wasn't in cash, but in the earth itself. U.S. firms might angle for first dibs, tying Ukraine's future to the hum of extraction rigs. It's a question that lingers. Could the battery in your car rest on Zelensky's breaking point? This wasn't about borders in the old-school sense. It was a scramble for what lies beneath. Studies floating around think tanks suggest every billion in arms shipped to Ukraine since 2022 might shadow a trade-off, thousands of acres open to mining. Those lithium deposits, worth tens of billions at today's prices, could bankroll most of the staggering costs to rebuild a shattered nation by decade's end. With China refining over half the world's supply, Ukraine's reserves aren't just a resource, they're a geopolitical lever, prized by a West racing to go green. The fine print tells a darker tale. Rumors swirl of agreements granting sweeping rights over strategic zones during murky emergencies, a playbook that recalls European powers carving up China long ago. Courts in Kiev might find themselves sidelined, disputes kicked to far-off arbitration hubs where the U.S. rarely loses. History offers a mirror. The 1878 Berlin Treaty chained debt to resource handouts, and today's aid could come with similar strings, quotas for what's dug up. Scholars have noted eerie parallels to colonial contracts, where supply trumps sovereignty every time. This isn't generosity. It's a heist, veiled in the language of support, stripping a nation's future one imagined clause at a time. Inside that room, the fight turned primal, bodies caught in a silent war. Picture Trump swiveling away from Ukraine's flag, a slight that flouts the niceties of protocol. The temperature might have played its part too, cooler on Zelensky's side, warmer where Trump sat, a subtle nudge toward unease backed by science. Vance's voice could have cut in like a metronome, time to unsettle, while Zelensky's grip tightened, harder, perhaps, than astronauts clutching their seats at liftoff. The air itself might have thickened, carbon dioxide creeping up to cloud the mind, a trick as old as power. Imagine a scent wafting through, primal and territorial, tilting the scales without a word. Every detail, heat, rhythm, breath, could have been a weapon, diplomacy distilled to control. Words slash deeper. What if loser rang out more times than in any polite summit, each barb fraying Zelensky's calm? Beggar might have landed like a gut punch, stripping dignity in real time. Toss in World War III as a casual threat, and the room's tension spikes, fear centers lighting up, headlines soon drowning in doomsday imagery. The speech could have danced between menace and flattery, a tactic to unmoor, while interruptions echoed old coercion tricks. It's not hard to see every syllable as a shackle, bending a man and his cause to breaking. Behind the curtain, the war machine hummed. Defense giants, imagine their strategists, might have whispered about seeding and timing, turning pressure into an art. Zelensky's strain could have been harvested, his data feeding algorithms for millions, training the next generation of dealmakers. The players might trace their bloodlines to tycoons of a gilded past, their terms echoing treaties that once handed empires new toys. This wasn't a talk, it was a ritual, binding trauma to profit in a dance as old as conquest. The aftershocks hit fast. Europe rushed to patch the rift, France and Germany tossing billions, speeding Ukraine's path west, but the Atlantic creaked under the strain. In Kiev, fury spilled onto streets, effigies flaring outside the U.S. Embassy. Zelensky urged resilience, his words sharp with history's weight. Some stand, some falter. Moscow smirked, sensing an opening, while China tightened its quiet hold on the board. The world tipped towards something Messier, where resources outweigh ideals every time. For Zelensky, it's personal. A boyhood shadowed by Soviet minds that stole his father's strength forged a man determined to shield his nation's wealth. In that room, his defiance met a juggernaut, but it lit a spark, Ukraine's next generation unbowed. Voices weighed in. Some saw a U.S. stumble, others a necessary shove. Critics called it crisis capitalism's latest score. The lithium's haul billions won't heal Ukraine's wounds. It'll flow elsewhere, leaving dry rivers and tainted soil. This was a fracture, the post-war order splitting open. As the Earth's riches thin, the race sharpens, from Africa's cobalt to Ukraine's lithium. Zelensky's fight isn't his alone. It's a window into a future where scarcity calls the shots, and the battle for what remains shapes who we become.